Kind of catch you guys up with what that was. I'll read this for you, and this comes from IGN. It says, we got another update about the much anticipated Indiana Jones game during opening night live. The game is set to be released on December 9th on Xbox Series X and S and PC. It was also announced that a PS5 version is currently in development, but it isn't set to release until spring 2025. Xbox boss Phil Spencer went into some additional detail about the decision to launch the game on the PS5 as well. And to dive a little further into it, to kind of see what people are mad about and what's been going on with some of the contradiction with Phil Spencer, whether you think it is or it isn't. Xbox head Phil Spencer has commented on bringing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to PlayStation platforms next year, saying our franchises are getting stronger. The new Indiana Jones game has caused quite a stir over the last 24 hours, which at this point it's probably been closer to 48, 72. Back in February, Spencer stated that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle wouldn't be one of 4 upcoming Xbox games that would eventually come to PlayStation platforms. Then yesterday at Gamescom opening night live, it was revealed that the Indiana Jones game would be coming to PS5 in spring 2025. A lot of people have taken this to be Spencer reneging on his previous statement, but that isn't the case.
Technically, yeah.
Spencer merely said that Indiana Jones wouldn't be one of the first 4 Xbox published titles to hit PlayStation platforms, and it isn't. That honor belongs to Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, and Sea of Thieves. So Xbox's strategy didn't contradict Spencer's statement earlier this year. Earlier today at Gamescom, Spencer was asked about how Indiana Jones' exclusivity period connects back to Xbox's strategy regarding exclusives. What I see when I look is that our franchises are getting stronger. Our Xbox console players this year are as high as they've ever been. So I look at it and say our player numbers are going up for the console platform. Our franchises are as strong as they've ever been, and we run a business, Spencer says in a live stream. Spencer then explains that within Microsoft, the bar is set high for us in terms of the delivery that we have to give back to the company. In other words, Microsoft has to see profit from its Xbox published games like Indiana Jones. So I look at this. How can we make our games as strong as possible to ensure that our platform continues to grow both on console, PC, and cloud? And I think it's just going to be a strategy that works for us, the Xbox head concludes. And I know, Andrew, you wanted to jump in and say something as well, but before we get off of that, I just want to say, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what franchises? Like, our franchises are just bold as ever, so we're gonna put more of them on PlayStation. I don't get what you're saying. Halo is falling off. Gears is stagnant forever without the new games coming. But it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You said the same thing 3 times, and the games are strong. You got a lot of players. I'm not sure how you did it, and I know you want to say something, and then we can kind of dive into it more. But what were your initial thoughts with the whole Phil Spencer and Indiana Jones controversy?
Well, it's just kind of crazier to me to even have something like that up front. I do have something on here from someone that I normally don't follow, but I thought he made a very good point. My whole feeling, I'm not too upset about it, to the fact that Indiana Jones is like a shared IP. That's something that everybody has, but I guess PlayStation has Spider-Man, so I mean, it doesn't really go both ways. But either way, I'm not too upset with that.
Yeah, but Sony owns Spider-Man right now. Or Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man, so that's different.
I know, but you have Marvel, or their X-Men game coming or something like that, so maybe it's a different thing. Either way, I'm not too upset, because it's not like Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark is something that isn't created, but it wasn't on PlayStation. They did their own thing. That's not a big thing that was shared across everybody.
Right? Doesn't Rare make Perfect Dark?
So, I think more what... Maybe especially too, because I can understand people being upset about it, is one, even back then when he said, hey, it's not gonna be one of the 4, you already knew that it was coming, so you weren't afraid to let everybody run wild with these headlines. And people might say, oh, it's not his fault what they print. Well, he didn't run out there and correct them. Maybe like, well, that's not necessarily true, where he does it with a lot of other things. But 2, let's say this game does come out in December, because you were talking about how it looks. Let's say this game does come out in December, day 1 on the Game Pass for me, or if I buy it on Xbox, whatever. And then I even have like another thing on here. They said Avowed is running at 38 FPS launching on Xbox. When it comes to PlayStation, is it going to be running much better? So it's almost like I'm beta testing these games?
Yeah.
Because that would piss me off, and that would super make me feel spurned as a fan, that I'm getting these games that aren't running as well as they could be, and then by the time it makes it to PlayStation, it's running perfect, 4K, 120 frames, whatever. How could you not feel spurned at something like that, you know?
Yep.
But the article I have here is actually from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, and Normally, I don't really care too much for what this guy says, but I kind of do agree with some of the sentiment in here. So this is over on Bloomberg, and again, we'll link it so you guys should check it out. He says, and this isn't the whole article, I just kind of got some clippings from it. Earlier this year, Microsoft began putting some of its former exclusives on PlayStation, starting with smaller, older titles such as Hi-Fi Rush. This week, the company announced that another big new title will follow the same route. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, coming in December to Xbox and PC, will arrive on PlayStation in spring of 2025. Ditching console exclusives is good news for players who can only afford to stick to one piece of hardware, and Microsoft was able to squeeze the Activision deal past regulatory scrutiny, in part because of its promise to continue to release Call of Duty on PlayStation. But Xbox's release strategy has been so confusing, it requires a massive spreadsheet and a full-time job to keep track of it all. Even within a single label, the company's choices are inconsistent. Take Bethesda, which Microsoft acquired in 2020. 3 games from the publisher have inexplicably different rollout plans. Last year's Starfield was released only on Xbox and PC with no PlayStation version in sight. Indiana Jones will be a timed exclusive coming to PlayStation a few months after its initial release, but the upcoming Doom the Dark Ages, scheduled for 2025, will release simultaneously on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. Obsidian, the well-regarded game maker that was purchased by Microsoft in 2019, recently put out PlayStation versions of 2 games, Pentiment and Grounded, yet its next game, Avowed, is scheduled to come out in February 2025 just on Xbox and PC, with no announced PlayStation release. These rollouts make little sense. Perhaps the company is still trying to straddle the line between reaching as many players as possible and burning fans who bought Xbox hardware under the belief that they would not be able to get those games elsewhere. But this sporadic case-by-case strategy benefits nobody and baffles everyone. But all of Spencer's changes have made the Xbox hardware less valuable to potential audiences. The best move, the winning move, would be for Spencer and his team to eschew exclusives and rethink its console strategy entirely. So I do agree with kind of a lot of what he says, but most importantly too, and what would be a bigger concern going from the future, unless you can see the writing on the wall that they just want to become a third-party app, is that it does devalue the console. Because there's a lot of people out there that now that you know that's coming to someone else, why would you buy an Xbox? And I'm not worried about the numbers on Xbox because there's crossplay and stuff like that. What I'm worried about is later games coming down the road. The next Resident Evil, the next Final Fantasy, the next whatever. How much less money is it going to take now for Sony to throw at them to make that exclusive and not be on Xbox now and lock it out? They've already done it with Final Fantasy VII. There is no way in any world that they ever could have bought out, like, hey, just don't put the next Call of Duty, or, for example, there's no amount of money on God's green earth they could lock you out from the next Grand Theft Auto. You know, that would have to be an insane amount of money. But Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, they already did with Silent Hill, let's say Castlevania comes back, Metal Gear. How long before some of these other companies are like, it's not really worth it for us to put it over there? And who knows, maybe Microsoft's gonna, hey, will you please bring it over here? Now that's more funds for them. We'll give you this to at least guarantee that it's coming to our system, that you've devalued your platform that much. That's my concern.
Yeah, well, you don't got to worry about the devaluation because the players are the strongest they've ever been. You know, their franchises are,
what does that mean?
Are the strongest they've ever been. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and what happens is it's the messaging behind Xbox is just so clouded. You're not sure ever what he means when he's saying these type of things. And I agree that, yeah, it's like, because you know, if Indiana Jones comes out in December, you're gonna get the shitty version until people want to wait for it on PlayStation. And again, there's no way you're gonna wrap your head around and tell me that Indiana Jones was the killer app that were making people go buy Xbox hardware, and it's like putting it on PlayStation is gonna make it stop. Again, I don't care if Indiana Jones is gonna be that game that's going to be on PlayStation, but there was no reason to announce it back to back with the announcement of Xbox. You should have given it its time, and when Sony did its next presentation, be like, oh, we're gonna end up getting this game later. I think it was a bad idea to put it back to back with that, because a lot of people are like, oh cool, we got December. Oh cool, it's not exclusive. And I know to a lot of people it doesn't matter, but to a lot of other people it really does. And
let alone spring, it's like
that's
not even a year, where they even just announced too, as part of like the more special stuff with the Game Pass. They were talking about it, that if you have that base version of Game Pass, how we were talking before, that you're not going to get these day one exclusives and stuff. They said you may have to wait up to a year to get some of these. So it's getting it on PlayStation before someone who owns an Xbox but has the base version of Game Pass except for they would have to pay for it, that it may be a lesser version that comes out within 3 months.
Yeah, because it's like one of those things. It's like, okay, if Sony's willing to pay money to make Final Fantasy an exclusive for which was supposed to be a year, which has moved on, it's like you don't have to pay anybody to make Indiana Jones exclusive for a year. You own the game, so you easily could have made this thing. Hey, it'll be a year on Xbox, and when we want to make money back on it in a year, if you want to play it on PlayStation, you can. So yeah, the fact that he's like, oh, and in 3 months if you're on PlayStation, just sit back and wait, because it just, at this point, it's like it doesn't make sense. And yeah, it does devalue the console. Who's gonna go get one? I mean, I'm gonna play it on Game Pass because that's where it's gonna be. But if you're sitting as a PlayStation fan, you're like, cool, have fun with the broken version.
I'm saying, even to keep it at more value, it's not coming to PlayStation. Get it day one on Xbox. You can get it on PC in 6 months. Why does it have to be day one on PC? Just like PlayStation's kind of done with some of their games. You get it day one on PlayStation, maybe eventually a year or something, you know, once the juice has been squeezed from that orange, it'll come to PC. It's just funny that they're adapting all these crazy strategies and talking all this nonsense about numbers when they're in third place. You don't see PlayStation doing this. You don't see Nintendo even remotely trying to do this. And I guarantee you they have games that have done worse than Indiana Jones would have just done on Xbox by itself. And you just take that hit because that game was never meant that's a game to booster the portfolio. That's just one more Lego block for you to come over here. But everything else we have coming, Avowed, Perfect Dark, whatever else, these are the reasons to get into the Xbox ecosystem, versus now, like, no, it's just going everywhere, so whatever. You do, you don't.
Yeah, I just feel like this was just a bad place to announce it, especially if the rumor's true that Sony's going to have their event next month. I think it's like, that should have been shown on I don't think it should have been shown at all this year. I think it should have been shown sometime next year. They should have written that out, but
at least after the game came out.
At least after the game came out, because yeah, I just think it was just bad messaging, and you just kind of burned a lot of fans. I mean, and again, to each their own if you think it's good news or bad news, but whether or not you do or don't, there's people that think that way, and it's just when everyone else, exactly like you're saying, Nintendo and PlayStation are doing fantastic right now. It's like, why is it always Xbox who has their foot in their mouth doing something that just doesn't quite make sense? But
I was gonna say, what's even crazier is that PlayStation has nothing to do right now to just capitalize on this moment. Yeah. They're just coasting and winning, and they're not even doing anything.
Yeah, they're like, hey, thanks for buying that studio, making this game, and then just giving it to us because you're so far behind on your sales. Because again, you're gonna put it on Game Pass. But then it's like, I don't want to hear that. You got to remember, guys, we're a business. We got to make money. Then it's like, then what is your point of doing it? There's ways to make money on Game Pass without having it day and date. You can have Indiana Jones, if you have Game Pass, you can have it day one on sale for 40 versus 70. In 6 months, it comes to Game Pass. In a year and a half, it comes to PlayStation. There's multiple ways to do that without looking idiotic.
It's funny, too, because I wish I'd seen it, so we can put a screenshot up of it. This Phil Spencer, I don't know what year was talking about. He's like, it doesn't make sense for us to bring some of these exclusives to PlayStation, because for every game we sell over there, they're taking 30% of that cut, and they're using that money to turn around and buy exclusives that now we aren't able to do. It's like, all right, well, where'd that sentimentality go?
Yeah, because even I think that when he was talking about bringing those other 4 games, I think that was earlier this year. I think that was like 6 months ago.
It was like February.
Yeah, it was earlier this year. So it's like I don't want to call it backtracking, but it is mixed messaging, and I don't know. It's just, what more can you do? I'm getting to the point where I'm just kind of done with Phil Spencer. I used to have his back, and it was cool because he was a gamer, but it's like, I can't support somebody who doesn't make sense when they talk. And I mean, and you can kind of read between the lines, I guess, because a lot of people were like, oh, he meant what he said, and there's no reneging on it. But I'm like, okay, but there's a difference between being cryptic and then having clear messaging, and that's what he just seems to be unable to do at this point.
And I was gonna say too, like, it's almost like you have to look back at what he says, and it's like, one, you take it with a grain of salt at the time anyways, but was that even true? Like, oh, we're treading the water with these 4 games? It's like, no, you're just kind of getting the bad news out of the way by trickling with these lesser titles when this was the plan all along. Because you can't tell me that those 4 titles completely revitalized the life and completely revitalized the profit. Because I mean, Sea of Thieves is already kind of thriving. It's been thriving,
it's way more thriving on PlayStation now than it ever was on Xbox.
It is doing really, really good on PlayStation.
Fantastic.
I think it's sold like at least like 1 million copies, but was 1 million of a game that miss of a mark? Because there's tons of other games that, like, oh, we're off by 1 million, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's pretty much what we have to say about that. Is there anything else you want to add on Indiana Jones?
No.
Alrighty, guys. So with